Mountain Lions Nation. You are listening to another episode of Lionsverse, a weekly podcast taking you inside the athletic department and giving you an opportunity to get to know some of your coaches as well as your fellow student athletes. I'm your host, Holly Stevenson, and with me I have the head of men's basketball, Jeff Culver. Jeff, thank you so much for sitting down to chat with me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Holly.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what you've been doing to prepare for this year. I know this season's looked a little bit different than your previous seasons.
Yeah, it's looked a lot different, and so that's been a challenge for sure. You know, this preseason to have more questions than answers, quite frankly, on start dates and preseason scrimmages and availability of guys and everything like that. So on top of the COVID, we've had some different injuries and we've got our freshman from Australia still in Australia due to some embassy closing. So we've had a myriad of things that have been challenging, but the guys have been doing a great job, having a good positive attitude. And I think, through all of this, that's key, is the mental part of preparing for a season like this that will be unlike any other season we've ever played.
Yeah, 100%. So mentioning the positive attitude and everything, has it been hard to keep your players in a positive headspace? What's the energy been like at practices as the season slowly but surely is getting ready to start?
Yeah, I mean, attitude's been great. We've tried to temper our scheduling, and we've tried to sort of build up steam and not try to peak too early, since we have a delayed start, and we may be delayed again here. So, we're prepared for that. We've been talking with guys quite a bit. I mean, just about daily, that we're reminding ourselves that, we're thankful for any opportunity that we have to be on the floor. We certainly have been through the quarantine this summer or the last spring, and not being able to be together, not being able to be indoor playing basketball. So I think the guys have done a great job of just, really being thankful for every opportunity that we do have to be on the floor and just attacking this thing one day at a time, trying to get a little bit better, knowing that tomorrow's not promised. We have no idea when we're going to have games, if we're going to have games, what those games are going to look like. And but they've been great, so far. I mean, I think the real challenge is in front of us still, quite frankly, because if we get delayed again to January, here we are mid-November, and we are really hoping to get some outside competition soon. So if anything changes, that's going to be tough. We'll have to manage that, but the NCAA waivers really help, I think, so we know that we're not going to be burning a year.
Right, absolutely. Guarantee those players again for the following. So speaking of the upcoming season, we have seen your team progressively improve on different aspects of their game each year. I know when George and I do the play-by-play and color commentating for the games, there's always something new that we like to talk about each season of what you guys have improved on. Is there a main focus for this coming season that you guys are looking to improve on for game-wise?
Yeah, health. we the last 2 years we've had some significant injuries, and so just when we felt like we were really heading in a great direction with the championship caliber team, we had some really key injuries and multiple injuries, and so right now, knock on wood, we're looking okay. We've got some small injuries that we're managing, and given the buffer of a delayed start, we've been able to be more conservative with our approach of getting guys back. But really at the forefront is we need to find a way to stay healthy, and really that will look differently this year, because as it stands now, there's a good chance that with any kind of positive cases, there may be some start and stops through the year. And so how we manage that and how we stay in shape if we are quarantined at some point will be critical to not only success on the floor, but just, to keep our guys healthy. So that's really at the forefront, aside from some X and O things that we're really focusing on, is how can we keep our bodies ready when there's so many unknowns of when we're going to be playing and when we may have some downtime.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have your player, has it been hard to get to talk to your players about like, hey, prepare for this, but also get ready that that might change within the next day?
Right,
Or
that's
is
the
that just
challenge.
kind of the entire mentality, kind of the entire approach for this season?
Yeah, I mean, that is in a nutshell what we're trying to do is, hey, we got to be ready for a game, a scrimmage potentially this Saturday, knowing that this afternoon we may very well have to call that off,
Hmm.
and
Right.
we've got games slated to start December 4th, but that may very well end up to be mid-January. And so we just have to again focus on what we can control. And when we're on the floor, every drill, every rep, can we maximize those opportunities? And so it's some of those
Sure.
old cliches that coaches use, to focus on the
Hmm.
next best action, next play mentality. But really, I think that from a mental standpoint, it's all the more helpful to do that this season.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm sure your players right now are just giddy with anticipation just to kind of get something started. I
Yes.
know definitely as a sports fan in general, I've just been excited to to watch the other sports go on for the school, however they can.
Yeah, and preseason normally is a tough part. Normally we got 6 weeks about,
Mhm.
before we actually get some outside competition. And so by the end of that preseason, we're ready. We need some outside, we need someone else to beat up on, and
Right.
so and now that's been delayed, so it's been tough. And if
Sure.
it gets delayed again, that's that mental piece where we just would like to be able to play against someone else at some point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So switching gears just a little bit, you've been at UCCS for, I think this is your eighth or ninth season now. And when you took over, you had one of the best turnaround seasons after your initial year of taking over the program. So what did you do initially to kind of generate so much success?
There's a handful of things, I think sometimes, the saying, what is it? It's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and Joes, and so getting the right people on the bus was a big piece of that. And
Hmm.
not only, from a recruiting standpoint, but a staffing standpoint,
Hmm.
and just getting that foundation of a culture established,
Hmm.
um, getting the right people on board that are willing to work hard, have a positive attitude, buy into our university's mission,
Hmm.
be pillars in the community, take care of things on and off the court, all the different things we expect out of these guys.
Hmm.
So that was huge. We were very fortunate to bring in some good early classes that were able to catapult, the progression. And then a lot of that was just, how quickly some young guys like the Derek Whites and the Alex Welches, and then, Dalton Pattons and Trayshawn Wilford's coming in. And like we had some really good guys that we brought in that really grew with the program, and
Right.
that's when we have our most success. And we bring in transfers every now and then too, but to be able to bring guys in, develop them, and get them bought into to the culture and what we're trying to do, that's the fun part of it. So we've been fortunate to be able to sort of keep that going, and we've got a lot of good guys on the team this year. And you mentioned, we're bringing everyone back again next year, and so
Right.
with the waivers, whatever does happen this year, we love the opportunity that we have this season.
Yeah.
It's a free year to get better. And so even if we're limited without the court, we still have a lot of learning with virtual and film work, and
Hmm.
guys spending time with each other, and getting acclimated with each other and everything. So, we're looking forward to taking advantage of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I feel like your records kind of speak for themselves in terms of the players and the staffing that you have behind you to support you for sure. Do you feel like your approach or your coaching style has changed over the last few seasons since taking over?
Yeah, possibly. And I think in general, I think I'm in my 20 something, 24th year, something like that of coaching, but it's certainly over the course has progressed. And I try to get a little better every year. I'm at that mentality that I certainly don't know everything, and I'm always trying to expand. And this past off season, I did a lot of Zooms and listened to a lot of different coaches, and
Right.
stole a lot of different, lessons on how to lead, how to coach, how to teach. So I think it's constantly progressing, what we're trying to do and what I'm trying to do as a coach. So, our offense, it has been morphing over the last year and a half, and we're heading in a sort of a different type of offensive flow than what I've ever done as a coach before. And so that's exciting. And I think the way I teach, I try to have um, more teacher mentality, and understanding. I think my patience has gotten a lot better over the years, especially with bringing in, if you can recruit freshmen and develop them, you have to have a few ounces of patience,
Sure.
and persistence to be able to develop these young student athletes. So I think that's been something that I've really focused on over the last handful of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it just briefly, that you're changing the flow of the game for you guys. Watching you guys in the past, last year you guys got really good at keeping the fast pace going right from the get-go. I know a couple of years previously, games would always get a little exciting at the end because they just had a hard time bringing out their full potential for their fast, full court offensive plays that you guys just flow so well with. And last year we really saw that click with them. Was there a different mental approach that the team had in terms of getting over, I don't know if it was a mental block, up until the last 10 or 15 minutes of the game?
Yeah, I think we definitely want to play a certain way, and we want to play that certain way for 40 minutes, and so I think that's always a challenge, to be able to maintain tempo, and the tempo that we want to play with, and the unselfish nature that we need that ball to be moving around, just quick decisions to be made. I think some of it also with how we want to play depends on our bench and our depth, and some of that comes back to the health conversation, to make sure we get the right guys on the floor and have capable guys to maintain a certain tempo for 40 minutes. But this year in particular, we're excited because we've got a lot of different weapons. We got a lot of guys that can play multiple positions. And we feel like, right now we feel like we have 11 starters on our team. And so, that gives us some unique flexibility, and we can put out some really dynamic lineups. We've been playing with a lot of bigger guards, and we've been lifting our forwards out a little bit more and turning face and open up some things to post some of our bigger guards, and that's been fun. And so, we'd like to press a little bit more to be able to maintain that for 40 minutes. And again, when Duran went down last year and Wyatt was out too, we not only did we lack offense, but Duran was a big piece of our pressing, and so to have another guard or two that can get in there and not only pressure the ball, but cover some ground, that's a big piece of our tempo. And so we're hoping again that we can stay healthy and keep this depth as we see it, to be a strength right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll definitely be exciting to watch that progress over the season for sure. I know it's always exciting to watch just how the men's team, they look like a totally different team from the beginning of season all the way to the very last, just with cohesiveness and everything. So it'll be fun to watch that again this season, especially with the depth that you say your bench has. Going back, you mentioned Derek White earlier. You were the only person, the only coach to offer him a scholarship, and he ended up being a draft pick for the Spurs in 2017. So what did you see in him that other coaches failed to see?
Yeah, I think there's some other coaches that saw some potential, but they were certainly scared, turned off by the fact that his body hadn't matured yet, But we see that a lot when we recruit high school players. We try to project them out 3 years at least, because typically we like to redshirt all of our freshmen if we can. We always let them know that there's a good chance of that, and then sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But so, how can they be, heading into their redshirt junior year? That's kind of what we look at. And so some of those things of, slight builds and still maturing bodies. Those things don't really scare me off. We've done that with some other guys too, that we felt like, you look at the size of their shoes, you look at their shoulders, you look at some basic basketball instincts. Derek had some really good natural instincts that showed on the floor. He was 6'2", 6'3", I think, or maybe he was 6'3", 6'4", really by his freshman year. But filling out physically over the course of the next 3 years certainly helped his game. But, he had some natural instincts. We saw that his body was still maturing. He's a great kid. He could play multiple positions. For us, it was one of those that it made a lot of sense to take a flyer on, because we felt like his upside was good. We certainly didn't know he'd be a, NBA starter, but, but recruiting's an imperfect science, and sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss, and you want to hit more than you miss ideally. And, but, we've been able to, and then, it's been kind of cool because now we've had 9 guys over the last 4 years sign pro contracts. So not everyone's going to the league, but there's a lot of good basketball around the world. And it's been pretty cool to see some of our guys be able to travel and sign pro contracts in Europe and just be able to have some really cool life experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you think more long-term goals when you're recruiting and coaching then too, which I think is obviously it's been a great benefit to have for the UCCS as well.
Yeah, we'll recruit transfers. This year we've got a few transfers that we love. And part of that was because we were a little bit unsure on some of our guys coming off of injuries. Duran's coming off 2 ACL surgeries now, and Wyatt Dover's coming back off a back surgery, and so we felt like we kind of got caught a little bit last year when both of them went down. We weren't quite prepared on our depth charts. And so we loaded up with a couple of transfers at each of those positions to where now we feel like, as those guys are getting healthy and back in the swing of things, now it's really increased our options. But primarily high school kids that we want to grow and develop for the future. And then every now and then we'll grab a transfer at a needed position to shore up, depth charts and fill in some gaps for us. So, but the transfers is tough because you don't want to miss on a transfer, because it's not like you got a lot of time to develop these guys. If you got 1, 2, 3 years, tops, but as opposed to 4 or 5 years with a high school kid, it can be significant. That's why this free year is so huge, because even now our transfers that we're bringing in, the thought that we're going to be able to get them for an extra year to fold them into our systems is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you always seen yourself being or coaching basketball? Was that always the end game for you?
No, I started college out pre-med at University of Michigan and changed my major a few times and ended up with a psychology degree and just got into some business management jobs, and so I volunteered, or I tried to volunteer at a few schools, got turned down. I knew I was intrigued at, helping out or coaching a little bit. And when I first started coaching at Alexander Dawson Middle School, 7th grade coaching position. Once I started, I knew I wanted to continue it. Yeah. And then my first college experience was volunteering over at Colorado State. And it was the year that they won the Mountain West as a 7th seed and played Duke in the first round. And that was my first time when I knew I wanted to do it full time and as a profession. And so, from there, I was able to make some jumps and progress with it. But it was an interesting start, and it's been a crazy path. And I know a lot of coaches like myself have some, starving artist type paths, to get into this business.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's very interesting. What would you say is the most challenging part about being a coach?
Well, probably the most challenging part is also what I love the most about it, and that's its dynamic nature. There's just so many different facets to it. I think sometimes people just think about the basketball part, the X and O part. But the recruiting part is 24/7, 12 months a year. Just ask my family. There's been plenty of family outings, been in it, having to intervene with some recruiting, whether it's phone calls or visits and whatever. That aspect of it, managing, your staff and your players, growing young men, trying to develop leaders on and off the floor, monitoring academics, getting involved in the community. I think our guys were 7 in the nation or something like that last year for community service. Like just a lot of different aspects of it that I think that I love about it, but also can be challenging just because it does send you in a handful of different areas and spreads you out a little bit, so it's very time consuming. But so I guess that's kind of the most challenging as well as what I love most about the job.
Right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like you have a really good team behind you and a kind of a good laid out foundation for yourself, though. What does your game day routine look like as a coach?
Well, a little bit dependent on home or away, sometimes home game day, I'm going over and coaching my daughter's, club team in the morning maybe, and then heading over to our shoot around and then going back and spending some family time before I head back to the gym again. But I normally touch up film work if I can, just before shoot around. And then, sometimes during the women's game, I like to just be able to kind of refocus on whether it's watching our scouting report again online or, just watching some different actions on our, opponent to kind of get refocused. But more than anything, just try to keep my mind as clear as possible and to be sharp and focused and well rested, so that coming into the game I can be as focused for my guys as possible to keep them on track and keep things flowing. But I'm a firm believer in servant leadership and just making sure that I'm doing whatever I can to prepare my guys and to give them the tools to be able to go ahead and take care of their own business on game day. So, just as much as we can prepare them and manage their days, and pregame meals and film work and shoot arounds and everything like that to make sure that they're ready is really the main focus of the day.
Awesome. Well, that is all that I have for you today, Jeff. Again, thank you for sitting down to chat with me. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you have a busy day. So we wish you, it was awesome getting to know you, but we wish you the best of luck for this coming season as well as to your team. And obviously we hope that everything goes as smoothly as possible this year. Mountain Lions, join me next week for another episode of Lionsverse. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week.